This is practice exercise from page 30 of the textbook. We're going to look at some calculations using density as a conversion factor. I'm going to show you two different ways to do this problem. The first way, we are actually going to change the units that the density is reported in order to use it as a conversion factor. The second way, we're going to keep the units of density the same, but we're going to change some other units that they cancel out with the units of density. So first thing we need to look at is what's given in the problem. We are given the density of benzene, and we're given the density in units of grams per milliliter. They're asking us to calculate a mass in grams of 1 quart of benzene. So you should notice that the grams are going to stay the same, so that's our mass measurement. What we do need to change are the volume units. We're given it in grams per milliliter, but they're asking us about a quart of benzene. So the first way we're going to do it is we're going to change the units of density. Instead of reporting density in grams per milliliter, we're going to report the density in grams per quart. In order to do that, I need to figure out how to convert between milliliters and quarts. If you look for conversion factors in the textbook, the conversion factor you're going to find involving quarts is that 1 liter is equal to 1.0567 quarts. But if you look at the information in the problem, we don't actually start with any information about liters, we start with milliliters. You should recognize that liters and milliliters are units in the metric system, which means they're related by our metric prefixes. So based on the prefix milli, we know that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So the milliliter is the smaller unit, so there are 1,000 of those smaller units inside the larger liter. So what this is going to allow us to do is change our units from grams per milliliter to grams per liter and ultimately grams per quart. So to start this out, I'm going to write out my density unit, 0.879 grams per milliliter. Now we know we are leaving the grams because we want our final answer in grams, so our conversion factors are going to focus on getting rid of the volume. In this case, multiply by conversion factor that cancels out milliliters. Since milliliters is in the denominator, that means I need to use a conversion factor with milliliters in the numerator in order for that to cancel. I'm going to change my milliliters into liters because that's the first conversion factor I know. Again, I do units first and then I plug in numbers. We know that there are 1,000 milliliters inside 1 liter. But we don't ultimately want units of liters. We want units of quarts, which means the next conversion factor is going to cancel out units of liters and leave us with units of quarts. So we can see the units of liters canceling, and we can go in and fill in the numbers. We know that 1 liter is equal to 1.0567 quarts. Again, go ahead and do the math. So start with 0.0897, multiply by 1,000, then divide by 1.056. And the actual number we're going to get out of the calculator, again, is pretty ugly. 831.83495979. Now we're in units of grams per quart. I'm not going to do my rounding quite yet because I'm not completely finished with this problem. In order to finish the problem, I don't want to know the density in grams per quart. I actually want to know the mass, so how many grams are in a quart of benzene. So all I need to do now is figure out how to cancel out quarts. Well, I know that I have 1.00 quarts that will cancel my volume units, leaving me with a mass unit. Since I'm just multiplying by 1, that's not really going to change my number, it just changes my unit. So I've got 831.83495979 grams, but I want to use my significant figures here. Again, we're going to go back to the original number we started with. So I've got 3 significant figures in this number, which means I only get 3 significant figures in this number. So if I look to the right, I've got 0.8, that's going to round up. So my answer is really 832 grams is how much a quart of benzene weighs, or the mass of 1 quart of benzene. So that's the first way to do it, where we've actually changed the units of density, and then we were able to use density as a conversion factor. The other way to do this problem is that we're going to convert the quarts into milliliters so that we can use the density as given. So I'll just scroll up a little bit. So again, this is a different way of approaching the problem, but it's going to give us exactly the same answer. And draw a line so you can separate the two different methods. So in this case, I'm then going to use the density as a conversion factor, but I want to take that 1 quart and I want to convert that into milliliters so that I can use the density in units of grams per milliliter. In order to change quarts into milliliters, I'm going to go through a similar process. This time, since quart is by itself, it's essentially in the numerator of the fraction, so I'm going to cancel it by putting quart in the denominator. I know how to change quarts to liters. I know that in every 1 liter, it's 1.0567 quarts. I know that I ultimately need to get this to milliliters. Again, I can put in the numbers that I know. I know that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So doing this math, this will tell me how many milliliters are in that quart. So plugging it into the calculator, I get an answer of 946.3423867 milliliters. Again, I'm not going to round until the very end, so I want to keep all of my digits and then I'll round at the end for significant figures. And again, we're using density as a conversion factor. So now I know how many milliliters, I know the volume, and I want to find a mass. When I have a volume and I want to find a mass, I need something that cancels out my volume and leaves me with a mass. So cancels out my volume, leaves me with a mass. Notice that this conversion factor has to have units of grams per milliliter. That is a density unit, and it matches the density units given in the original problem, 0.879 grams per milliliter. So I can just put that number in. Grams per 1 milliliter is implied when it just says per milliliter. Now I can do that math. And you should notice that I'm getting the same answer I got before. I still only have 3 significant figures. So this is going to round to the exact same number, 832 grams. So that is the mass of 1 quart of benzene. Again, I'm going to circle that to show you my final answer. So this was 2 different approaches to the same problem. Both gave me the same answer, which they should do, and there is no one right approach. There may be other approaches that you prefer. All that matters is that you can show your work, you can explain how you got to the final answer, and everything matches. So no matter which way we do, we all get to the same final answer, which means we have the correct answer.